It's ironic that, as a teenager, Lee Harvey Oswald was a fan of the television show I Led Three Lives, because in it, the main character poses as a communist agent, but secretly reports to the FBI. And, well, it's highly likely that Oswald was doing the exact same thing, and there's plenty of evidence to support this case. Good old Oswald. It appears that in 1959, he defected to the Soviet Union, along with his top-secret military clearance from his work in the Marines monitoring U.S. spy planes, but he returned to the States a mere 2 years later, bringing back a Russian bride whose father was a suspected KGB agent. Even more outlandish, the two were not only allowed in without any reservation, but the government actually loaned Oswald the money to return, and even expedited the process. The U.S. State Department gave $435 to a supposed defector to an enemy nation, and this treatment came as absolutely no shock to Oswald. In fact, it seems he expected it, as in a letter he penned to the American embassy, he stated that he believed he could catch a military hop back to the States from Berlin. The very notion is quite laughable, maybe to the point of being utterly ridiculous. That is, until you dig a little bit deeper.
On a completely
unrelated topic. Have you ever heard of the term sheep dipping? It's probably a bit less fun and a bit more sinister than what you're probably thinking. Sheep dipping is a tactic that the U.S. intelligence community uses in order to make it appear that an agent is something other than what he really is.
I am a Marxist, that is correct.
Maybe keep that in mind for the upcoming bits. Like, as we talk about Oswald and all the cool, fun, and connected people he associated with while back stateside. I mean, they aren't exactly the sort of people you would expect a known Marxist to be hanging around with. So anyways, Oswald's back in the States doing his thing, bebopping around New Orleans, handing out communist literature to people out on the streets, while maintaining friendships with people like Clay Shaw, a businessman and CIA informant, Guy Bannister, an FBI agent turned detective, and David Ferry, a member of the Civil Air Patrol involved in the CIA military training of Cuban exiles. So yeah, Oswald is doing his duty out on the streets, spreading knowledge to the masses, when one day he gets into a fight with someone that doesn't take too kindly with what he's about. Oswald quickly gets arrested, he's thrown in jail for disturbing the peace. While in custody, he then requests to speak to an FBI agent, and remarkably, the request is honored. Special Agent John Lester Quigley is dispatched to the jail and speaks with Oswald, but whoops, he ends up burning his notes, so we'll never know what the two chatted about. Fun note, the address listed on Oswald's flyers that he was handing out matched the office of the previously mentioned former FBI agent, Guy Bannister. Anywho, Lee Harvey, he migrates to Dallas, Texas, and a friend of his, George de Mohrenschildt, gets him a place to stay. Now, de Mohrenschildt, himself an anti-communist, was a petroleum geologist and professor by trade, and happened to be friends with CIA employee and future U.S. President George H.W. Bush, a guy that cannot remember where he was the day that JFK died. Anyways, when Oswald and his wife Marina's relationship hits the skids, de Mohrenschildt finds a place for Marina to stay at the home of Ruth Payne. Ruth happened to be quite a connected woman. Her father had CIA ties and was being considered for an undisclosed covert operation in Vietnam. Her sister, Sylvia Hoke, was an employee of the CIA in Falls Church, Virginia. And in yet another astounding coincidence, her mother-in-law was friends with Allen Dulles, the man who was the CIA director from 1953 to 1961 before he was fired by JFK. Despite this conflict of interest, Allen Dulles would be appointed to the Warren Commission to investigate the murder of John Kennedy. Did I mention it was also Ruth that got Oswald his job at the Texas Schoolbook Depository? But yeah, for the very open Marxist that Oswald portrayed himself as in public, it makes perfect sense for him to have so many friends and connections with ties to the U.S. intelligence community. I mean, it makes perfect sense. if Oswald was actually...
counter spy for the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Oh, and if you are wondering about that Warren Commission thing, there was evidence that popped up showing that Oswald received regular payments from the FBI for being an informant starting in September of 1962, right up until his death. In fact, there's even some speculation that Lee was even at the Bay of Pigs training camp in Lake Pontchartrain, Louisiana, and had informed on them to the FBI just prior to them being shut down. Oh, and later, former CIA accountant James B. Wilcott testified to the House Select Committee on Assassinations that Oswald was an employee of the agency and was an agent of the agency. When asked to clarify what he meant by the term agent, Wilcott said that Oswald was a regular employee receiving a full-time salary for agent work for doing CIA operational work. Not only has Oswald's employment with U.S. intelligence agencies been documented in official files and testimony, but his mistress, Judith Very Baker, as well as his own mother, Marguerite Oswald, both claimed he was a government agent. According to Baker, Oswald revealed that he had infiltrated a ring to assassinate JFK, and although he suspected he was being set up, he chose to continue because of fear that harm would come to his family if he backed out. He also told Baker that by remaining involved, one less bullet would be fired at JFK. Believe it or not, take it with a grain of salt if you will, but it's definitely something intriguing to think about, Oswald and all of his connections. What's your opinion on it? Feel free to leave a comment below, and maybe drop a like or consider subscribing.